Police brutality, excessive force, and racial discrimination. You may have heard these terms many times in the news recently, as they have become a topic of increased discussion and debate in today's society. Police brutality is the use of excessive force and/or unnecessary force by police when dealing with civilians. Excessive use of force means force well beyond what is necessary in order to handle a situation. Officers are instructed to follow what is known as the use of force continuum. It clearly shows progression in use of force for any given situation. First, the officer is present without any threats or force. Then, polite requests or demands. Next is empty hand control of an individual, followed by methods to gain control, such as chemicals, blunt impact, or tasers. Then only once the situation calls for it, lethal force may be used if the individual poses a threat to the officer or other individuals. The final stage creates the large debate surrounding the issues of police brutality. In this next video, we see an unarmed black man, Walter Scott, being shot by North Charleston police officer Michael Thomas Slager. Slager was charged with the murder of Walter Scott.
Oh shit. Shit.
Because there was a bystander recording this incident on their cell phone, Walter Scott's case had a substantial amount of evidence. How does the government play a role in police brutality? The government is not doing enough to collect data on excessive force, portraying that it may be ignoring the issue of police brutality. It is also difficult to gather correct and unbiased data because the data is coming from the police stations. As a result, it is often difficult to even determine whether or not excessive force is used. Furthermore, the federal government rarely prosecutes cases of possible excessive force due to the difficulty of finding hard evidence. One step that certain states have begun to take is to require officers to wear body cameras. This not only holds officers accountable, but will provide evidence in cases involving police officers. Many states are working on legislation that requires body cameras, something that should be made required through national legislation. The government should also do a better job to evaluate the relationship between law enforcement and the public, and to collect accurate, up-to-date data of police actions in the community. A police brutality case that received a lot of publicity was the case of Michael Brown. Michael Brown was an unarmed African-American teenager who was shot and killed on August 9, 2014, by Darren Wilson, a white police officer. The shooting has sparked a number of protests on justice for Michael Brown. By choice of a grand jury, the officer was not indicted with any crimes. Is this okay? Should there have been greater consequences? It's questions like these that are up for major debate on the topic of police brutality. How does public opinion impact the issue of police brutality? The public and law enforcement have a very bittersweet relationship. The public sees the police as both a friend and an enemy, and the police often view citizens in a very similar way. Police and citizens are often friendly on the surface but have an underlying distrust for one another. The public has caused the issue of police brutality to receive much attention and has greatly brought the issue to light. Nowadays, with the prevalence of technology, people are always recording video of police incidents with their phones. Even a simple traffic stop has the chance to transform into something newsworthy or an incident of police brutality. This shows that the public is greatly bringing attention to the issue and forcing a change to be addressed. Additionally, the African American community has much less confidence in the law enforcement in terms of honesty and ethics. According to polls, white Americans have lots of trust and faith in their law enforcement, while there are fewer African Americans feeling the same way. With division in the community over the law enforcement, police brutality has become an even bigger issue. People of color are more likely to agree that police brutality is a pressing issue than white Americans are. How do special interest groups impact the issue of police brutality? The NAACP works to end racial bias in the criminal justice system and promote equal civil rights for all in the eyes of law enforcement. It seeks to work towards legislative action to promote police reform, build a safer community, and improve relationships between the citizens and the law enforcement. The Institute for Justice Education Reform seeks to provide public support, research, and analysis on the justice system and law enforcement. Working with partners in law enforcement, academics, medical professionals, policy and legislative analysis, civic organizations, and community groups, the Institute for Justice Education Reform works state by state to improve current police misconduct and the subpar expectations for continued education and advancement training. Overall, everybody wants to end the issue of police brutality. The government, the public, and special interest groups all want to make a positive change. The reason this conflict persists is because of the lack of mutual trust between the law enforcement and citizens. All of those involved must work to improve relations and make actions to hold either side accountable in any given situation.